Well, it's been over 20 years, but a high-profile murder is back in the spotlight.
Now the daughter of Tamara Green is taking to social media with striking allegations against the former mayor. Fox 2's Lauren Edwards reports.
The mayor decided to pay off cops in the city to murder my mother.
What would I say to her? Tell her I'm sorry.
Attorney Norman Yatuma at a loss of words of what to say, thinking about the unsolved murder of Tamara Green. Her daughter spoke openly about it on a viral TikTok video on Friday, which he watched.
My mom ended up having an affair with the mayor of the city.
I can't tell you I disagree with anything she said. You know, I didn't know her at the time. She was obviously a very young girl. 7 when her mom passed away.
In 2003, Green, an exotic dancer, was shot and killed months after she performed at a rumored but never proven Manoogian Mansion party. Former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick was allegedly there.
Do I think Kwame Kilpatrick hired police officers to kill her? No, I don't. I know the investigator, the lead investigator who did it, and he still firmly believes that she was in a car with a dope dealer, her friend, who owed like a $50,000 debt. Someone came up and shot at him, missed, and killed her.
Former Detroit Police Assistant Chief Steve Dolan knows the case well, he says.
Do I believe that people got demoted? Oh yeah. Do I believe, because I got demoted, do I believe people, that files are missing? Sure, I believe it happens. But do I think he hired police officers to kill her? No, I don't.
The Detroit police say, quote, the investigation into Mrs. Green's homicide remains open. The Detroit Police Department's homicide unit will continue to investigate any tips and leads made available. Yatuma believes people should listen to what Ashley is saying.
Everything she said is the gospel truth.
Detroit police emphasize that the investigation is ongoing and they're asking anyone with tips to please reach out to their homicide unit. I'm Lauren Edwards on The Edge.
I viewed this recent video about Tamara Green on Leah Gordon's Black Girl News channel. No, this is not the same as the news. It's way more than just one news report. It's an entire presentation comprised of all the reports and interviews associated with Tamara Green. This was well put together, and all of the information was easy to follow. It's the most complete documentary I've seen anywhere. I've searched for everything because I wanted to know why nothing was reported about the shooting death of Tamara Green until Gary Brown was fired for his investigation of the Executive Protection Unit for the mayor. The rumors about the party or parties came out 2 years later in 2005. I was at work listening to the Mildred Gaddis show, broadcasting on my radio. She would talk about politics and current events in Metro Detroit. That afternoon, I was assigned to an insulator power washing job at an industrial location known as Zug Island. The man in charge of the crew told me, "Don't believe for 1 second that that party didn't happen." He told me that his ex-brother-in-law was assigned to the EPU at the time the party took place, and there definitely was a party at the Manoogian Mansion, while it was under renovation, the fall of 2002. So this was what inspired me to research the mystery surrounding the infamous Manoogian Mansion party. The most suspicious activity that brought this rumor to life was the memo written to Police Chief Jerry A. Oliver by Gary Brown. Gary Brown was in charge of the Department of Internal Affairs, and it was his duty to investigate reports of improprieties by the Detroit Police Department. Gary Brown received such a report from ex-police officer Harold Nelthorpe, who had previously been assigned to the mayor's EPU. Now, the thing about the information in this memo is that it was revealed days before Tamara Green was murdered in a drive-by shooting. Gary Brown never had an opportunity to speak with Tamara Green concerning the reports about the Manoogian Mansion party. You have to understand the whole dynamic of the EPU operation under the Kilpatrick administration. The head of the EPU at this time was Ronald Fleming, but this was only on paper. They just used his name like a rubber stamp for the payroll. In actuality, Kwame's old high school friends were in charge of the day-to-day activities. Lorenzo Gregg, Jones, and Michael Martin. The lifestyle was one big Playboy party that got out of control. One of the whistleblowers, Harold C. Nelthorpe, met with Internal Affairs on April 26, 2003. Is it a coincidence that Tamara Green was gunned down in a drive-by shooting on April 30, 2003, just 4 days later? Are we really supposed to believe that these incidents are totally unrelated? Someone knew that once Officer Harold Nelthorpe let the cat out of the bag, they would have to cover their tracks. The fact has been established that Tamara Green was commuting between Detroit and Columbus, Ohio at the time she was murdered because she was afraid for her life. Chief Jerry Oliver was instrumental in the subsequent dismissal of Gary Brown from his position in the Department of Internal Affairs. A scandal involving a handgun in Oliver's checked luggage at Detroit International Airport led to his resignation in October 2003 and a misdemeanor charge. All I can say about this is that I would think a police chief would know all the rules and regulations regarding traveling with handguns. The prosecutor who charged Oliver is the current Detroit mayor, Mike Duggan. Kwame Kilpatrick promptly appointed Detroit's new chief, Ella Bully Cummings. She and cold case lead detective Mike Carlisle made arduous attempts to spin the case in a different direction, accusing Darrett L. King of a retaliatory murder in a dispute over drugs, with the target actually being Tamara's boyfriend Eric Big E. Mitchell. This theory was easily disproven by an eyewitness account that the shooter was left-handed and Darrett King is right-handed, plus the fact that Darrett King passed a polygraph test. Corruption is an emotional virus to which there is no cure. Once the system is infected, everyone will experience the symptoms in one way or another. Normal, everyday rationality is replaced by destructive predatory behavior. How much capital was used to prevent Detroit's inevitable financial collapse into the icy waters of bankruptcy? It's sad, but this was the vaccination Detroit needed to recover from a virus of municipal corruption. In a few months, this tragedy born April 30, 2003, will become a full adult mystery, 21 years of age. Many secrets were buried along with the evidence that would have Tamara Green's family's lawsuit dismissed in federal court. All of the witnesses who testify about the incident that allegedly took place at the Mnuchin mansion were discredited for various reasons. City of Detroit computer hard drives and cellular phones were discarded or destroyed. The truth about Tamara Green's demise may forever be an urban legend. Can I have your attention for a minute? The voices that you hear in this presentation are not real, but actually text-to-speech voices. If you listen very carefully, you will discover that something strange was going on in the city of Detroit back in 2003 to 2008. First, I want to take you back to 1992, when Kim Worthy was a young prosecuting attorney. Malice Green was an African-American citizen who was killed after being struck with a flashlight by Detroit police officers Walter Budzin and Larry Nethers on November 5, 1992, during a routine traffic stop. Budzin and Nethers were convicted of murder. On appeal, this was reduced to involuntary manslaughter. The city of Detroit allegedly attempted to falsify reports by harassing the city coroner Khalil Jarraki into testifying that drugs were involved in the incident. Jarraki was later fired, apparently due to mental instability and absenteeism. He was awarded $2.5 million in a harassment suit filed against the city. The 36-year-old lawyer scored her biggest victory that summer when a jury convicted 2 white Detroit police officers charged with second-degree murder in the beating death of black motorist Malice Green. The police officers were fired after they were convicted. That victory boosted Worthy's win ratio to 90% of the 100 jury cases she had tried since joining the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office in 1984. Worthy is clearly the go-to person when it comes to prosecuting high-profile cases. Her victories included the conviction of Michael Cato, who was charged with murder in connection to the death of his brother-in-law Anthony Riggs, upon Riggs' return to Detroit from military service in the Persian Gulf. She also won a murder-for-hire case in which an elementary school teacher was fatally shot by a hitman in front of her 6th-grade students. If you had a family member that was killed, wouldn't you want someone aggressively representing your side? Worthy asks in defense of her aggressive style. You wouldn't want them to be wimpish. You just don't prosecute homicides like that. I'm going to do everything I can that's within the bounds of the law. Worthy's manner and personal style were showcased during the 3-month-long trial, which was broadcast nationally on cable television's Court TV channel. I didn't realize so many people were watching the trial until people started stopping me in the street, telling me the prosecution was doing a good job, Worthy says. I knew that no matter what the verdict was, at least people would have seen the trial and could perhaps understand how the jury reached its verdict. Being in the media spotlight every day had its drawbacks, Worthy says. At the beginning of the trial, the local paper published profiles of the attorneys involved in the case. While the stories on the male lawyers cited their experience, Worthy's article focused on her hair and nails. Some people thought I was a bimbo or something, says the University of Michigan and the University of Notre Dame Law School graduate. Thankfully, most people were familiar with my work and my record. Copyright 1992, Johnson Publishing Company. Now, it was 14 years later. Things have changed drastically. The defendants in the Malice Green case were both Caucasian and the victim was a black man. This incident took place in front of several witnesses who were not reluctant to come forward. There was no love lost for Budson and Nethers in Detroit. In 2001, Kwame Kilpatrick became the mayor of our city in a landslide victory over Gill Hill and was re-elected for a second term in a shocking come-from-behind victory in 2005. We know that Kwame Kilpatrick is a dynamic speaker and knows how to deliver a message. On the other hand, the people of Detroit know that Kwame Kilpatrick has been known to take liberties with the truth, citing the incident of the Red Navigator. If he could lie about something like a vehicle, it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to believe that Mayor Kilpatrick wasn't honest about the party, which allegedly took place in November of 2002. It seemed to me that Detroiters rally around a case when injustice involved white defendants and the victim or victims are African American, regardless of what the victim's character was. For instance, Malice Green was a known crack cocaine addict. It's clear that Tamara Green was no model citizen, but her family and friends still deserve a thorough and impartial investigation into the circumstances surrounding her death. This is the reason for my presentation, which I have appropriately named Strawberry Letter. Tamara Green's stage name was Strawberry, and I wrote this on her behalf in order to seek the justice that her family deserves. Regardless of the outcome, may her soul rest in peace. Tamara Green, April 30th, 2003. On November 7th, 2005, the former boyfriend of Tamara Green sued Detroit and state officials, accusing them of deliberately botching the investigation so her killer wouldn't be found. Ernest Flagg of Detroit is a small business consultant and former city council candidate who is the father of the dancer's son, accused officials of covering up the investigation into Tamara Green's death. I was hopeful that Mr. Flagg would be armed with all the information available to help win his case. Attorney Mike Stefani was very busy those days with all the litigation involving the city of Detroit and the mismanagement of its police department. It seemed like a case that would have easily been supported by its nature of the proceedings in the whistleblower's trial. This was Mike Cox's statement remarks. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming today. A number of years ago, I was unfaithful to my wife Laura. It did not involve anyone in any way connected to the Attorney General's office. What I did was inexcusable. I am completely responsible for what happened, and it was entirely my fault. I told Laura about it on March 22nd of 2003. I really have a problem with this story. AG Mike Cox was asked to investigate allegations about the EPU and the Menuja Mansion Party on May 17, 2003. I keep thinking about the mayoral debate, when Mayor Kilpatrick concluded by asking Freeman Hendricks if he could say that no one in his family had ever been in trouble with the law. Freeman Hendricks didn't know at that time about his son being arrested for assault and other charges. If Mayor Kilpatrick was able to find that information, it's possible he knew something about Mike Cox's infidelity. With skeletons in his closet, Mike Cox may have been in a vulnerable position to perform a thorough investigation involving the mayor. The only reason Mike Cox had come forward at that time was because of a political battle with attorney Jeffrey Feiger. Mike Cox had been sworn into office January 1st, 2003. Why was Cox so worried about the information about his infidelity coming out at that time? Was it just his personal shame? Or was it that the price of silence was more than he was willing to pay back then? Could this be the reason he met privately with the mayor Kwame Kilpatrick and his wife Carlita Kilpatrick? A week later, at a news conference, Cox made the announcement that the Menujan Mansion Party is urban legend. What I find most fascinating about the whole ordeal is that there is a long list of individuals who must live with these secrets for the rest of their lives. Surely, Kwame Kilpatrick knows the truth. His ex-wife Carlita knows the truth also. Officers Michael Martin and Lorenzo Greg Jones know the truth. Of course, Strawberry knew the truth, and her friend Nikki knew the truth. Most likely, Eric Big E. Mitchell would know the truth, especially if he was supposedly the suspected target of the drive-by shooting that ended Tamara Green's life. I guess you might say this is all allegations and speculation on my part. It has been proven that there is such a thing as karma. That means what goes around comes back around. These lies and all the corruption eventually would destroy the careers of those responsible for murder of innocent victims. I came across this reference from scripture about lies in the book of John, chapter 8, verse 44. You're from your father, the devil, and all you want to do is please him. He was a killer from the very start. He couldn't stand the truth because there wasn't a shred of truth in him. When the liar speaks, he makes it up out of his lying nature and fills the world with lies. I know it wouldn't be admissible in a court of law, but I would like to see if any of the people mentioned could pass a polygraph test if the question was posed about the occurrence of a party at the Mnuchin mansion. I don't believe that everyone has put it together that all the events in this case point to one obvious conclusion. That being that the Kilpatrick administration went through a great deal to keep Tamar Green's murder a mystery. I felt like this case could have only been solved by an outside investigation on the federal level not attached to local politics. I heard bits of information from different sources about the Mnuchin mansion party. One report is that there were 3 women injured at the Mnuchin mansion party who were transported to 3 different hospitals under other names than their own. In conclusion, I ask this question: if there wasn't any crime, why such an elaborate cover-up?
Come from that dancing. I knew some fella's wife was going to cause some real trouble one day, but no one, and I mean no one, has the right to beat you with a bat. She reached for a Kleenex and blew her nose loudly. I know mama. Big Mama went on to say, I raised you up on my knee telling you about Rosa Parks. Telling you, don't be afraid to take a stand. Right is right. You wasn't raised up to let no one treat you second class, whether you was dancing or not. I know mama. Do you think for 1 minute Rosa would let that highfalutin woman beat the crap out of her and not make a report? The woman had a right to be mad at him. He's the one she should have beat down, not you. Right is right, Chili. Y'all don't want me to forget I'm a Christian and bring my old ass up there to see about this mess. Tamara smiled. You don't have to come up here, mama. I will. I'll bring my own security. They won't fool with me. Big Mama was usually a boisterous woman. Everyone in the family always said it wasn't when Big Mama yelled, it was when she got real quiet and spoke so a person could hardly hear her. That's when it was time to get worried, that's when we all knew she was good and mad. Tamara knew what she meant when she said she'd bring her own security too. She didn't play around. A pearl-handled derringer lay by her heart, safely tucked into her bra. And she wasn't afraid to pull it out. No, you don't need to come up here. You're right as usual, and I knew you would tell me the right thing. I already knew in my heart what I need to do. That's why I called you. I knew you would tell me. I promise, when I get feeling better in a little while I'll go downtown to file the complaint. Big Mama said, okay, Chili, you make sure you call me when you get home. I don't care what time it is. I'll be waiting to hear from you. You be careful, you hear me, Tammy? You call me the minute you get home. Her grandmother rarely called her Tammy. She promised she would call her back later that evening and laid the phone on the coffee table and promptly fell back asleep on the sofa. The Flexeril made her sluggish, but together with the Vicodin it did help ease the pain. Chapter 3. The report several hours later she woke up to the sound of her cell phone ringing. It was Nikki. Hey girl, how are you doing? She glanced at the clock on her VCR as she said, I'm actually getting ready to ride downtown and file a report about what happened. For real? Sitting up, she replied, yes, for real. My arm is really sore and I know I'm not going to be able to work for a few days. Oh. Pointedly she asked Nikki, how are you? Do you want me to pick you up on my way to the police station? Nikki seemed to fumble with her words. Wow. No. I don't think that is such a great idea. I'm actually feeling fine. So that's it? She gets to do that to us? Nikki changed the subject. Girl, there's been a black car outside of my house all day. I think it's an unmarked police car. Tamara pulled her curtains to the side just enough to peer outside of her apartment. I think your imagination is running away with you. But I understand if you don't want to press charges. Nikki sounded relieved to be off the hook about going with her when she said, I doubt they will even question her about it. The retort tumbled out of Tamara's lips, before she even had time to think. Of course they won't. If it had been one of us who beat the hell out of her, we'd already be locked up. The issue she has is with her man, if you ask me. Everybody in this town knows he is hotter than a two-beckered billy goat. Both the girls laughed into the phone.